November 10th, 2015. A great white shark launched out of the water off New Zealand's coast, closing the distance between predator and surfer in a single violent surge. In an instant, Sam Morgan found himself face to face with the open jaws of a nearly 3-meter shark, its teeth locking around his leg as the ocean beneath him turned black with blood. What followed would become one of the most shocking shark attacks in recent history, an 8-second strike that transformed a calm dawn surf into a fight between life and the sea itself. The 111 emergency dispatcher received the call with a jolt of urgency and disbelief. "We've got a shark attack. Massive blood loss. Send immediate response." Within moments, lifeguards and paramedics were already sprinting toward the shoreline. By the time Sam was brought in, they were stabilizing him on the sand and preparing rapid transport, his condition critical, his survival uncertain. What began as a routine wave at sunrise would soon spark a national debate about ocean warnings, territorial sharks, and how close humans live to the edge of the wild without ever realizing it. The stretch of coastline where Sam Morgan surfed that morning is known to locals but unmarked on most maps. No designated surf break name, no warning signs. Just open ocean, rocky outcrops, and consistent swell. Water temperature in early November sits at 16 degrees Celsius. Visibility is moderate. Marine activity follows seasonal patterns that locals have tracked for decades. This part of New Zealand's east coast runs along deep water channels where the continental shelf drops away sharply. The ocean floor falls from 20 meters to over 100 within a short distance from shore. The underwater topography creates perfect conditions for both waves and predators. The coastline here is rugged, carved by centuries of wave action and storms. Black volcanic rock formations jut from the water at irregular intervals, creating natural navigation points for surfers, but also hiding the deeper channels where larger marine life moves unseen. Local fishermen have long known these waters hold more than just fish. Sightings of great whites are rare but not unheard of. Most pass through unnoticed, hunting in the early morning hours or late evening when the light is low and seals are most active near the surface. The area sits along a migration route, a highway for sharks moving between feeding grounds along the coast. Great white sharks patrol these waters year-round. They follow seal colonies along the coast, moving with the currents and the food supply. New Zealand records an average of 2 to 3 unprovoked shark incidents per year. Most are investigative bites, some are not. The species can reach over 6 meters in length, though most encountered near shore measure between 3 and 5 meters. Their bite force reaches approximately 1.8 tons per square inch. Their teeth are designed to puncture, hold, and tear. They are not designed to distinguish between a seal and a human lying flat on a surfboard. They hunt from below, using the light from above to silhouette their prey. In low-light conditions, dawn and dusk, the strategy becomes even more effective. The great white's hunting technique is refined through millions of years of evolution. They cruise at depth, sometimes 30 or 40 meters down, scanning the surface for the dark shape of a seal. When they identify a target, they rise slowly at first, building momentum, then accelerate vertically in the final meters before impact. The strike comes from directly below, fast enough that the prey has no chance to react. The initial bite is meant to immobilize, to cause massive trauma and blood loss. Then the shark often releases and waits, circling at a distance while the prey weakens. This behavior protects the shark from injury. Seals have sharp teeth and claws, and a wounded shark is a dead shark. Better to strike, retreat, and return when the prey can no longer fight back. Sam Morgan grew up near the water. He'd been surfing since age 12, not a competitor, not chasing sponsorships, just consistent, confident, the kind of surfer who knows when to paddle out and when to stay in. He worked part-time at a local dive shop in town, handling equipment rentals and giving advice to tourists about where to find the best breaks. He knew the tides, knew the seasonal patterns, knew which spots worked best in which wind conditions. He also knew the risks. Everyone who surfs in New Zealand waters knows about sharks. They talk about it in the car park, in the water, over beers after a session. It's part of the contract you sign with the ocean. You accept the risk because the reward, the feeling of riding a clean wave in cold water under an open sky, is worth it. Sam had grown up in a small coastal town where the ocean wasn't just recreation, it was identity. His father had been a commercial fisherman for 20 years before retiring. His older sister worked as a marine biologist studying coastal ecosystems. The Morgan family understood the ocean's dual nature, provider and predator, beautiful and brutal. Sam had learned to read the water from childhood, understanding how wind direction affected wave quality, how tide changes shifted sandbanks, how moon phases influenced fish behavior and consequently shark activity. He'd seen sharks before, mostly bronze whalers and makos from fishing boats, but never a great white. They were out there, he knew that, but in all his years in the water, he'd never had a direct encounter. That morning, Sam paddled out before 6:00 a.m. The sky was still dark, just beginning to show the first hints of dawn along the eastern horizon. He parked his car in the gravel lot above the beach, pulled on his wetsuit, waxed his board, and walked down the sandy track to the water. The beach was empty. No footprints in the sand, no other cars in the lot, just him and the ocean. He paddled out through the shore break, duck diving under the white water, feeling the cold water seep into his wetsuit before his body heat warmed it. Once beyond the break, he sat up on his board and waited. The ocean was calm. The swell was clean. Shoulder-high sets rolled in every few minutes, building gradually as they moved over the reef before breaking in long, peeling lines toward the beach. The water was darker than usual, that deep blue-black that comes before sunrise when the ocean holds on to the night. Sam sat in the lineup, legs dangling on either side of his board, feeling the gentle rise and fall of the swell passing beneath him. This was his favorite time to surf, the world still asleep, the ocean uncrowded, the silence broken only by the rhythmic crash of waves. He watched the horizon, looking for the dark lines that signaled an approaching set. The air was cool, maybe 12 degrees, and his breath created small clouds of condensation that dissipated quickly in the offshore breeze. Within 20 minutes, 2 other surfers arrived. Sam recognized one of them, a guy named Mike who worked construction and surfed most mornings before his shift started. Mike was in his early 30s, stocky and strong, with a beard and sun-bleached hair. The other was younger, maybe 19 or 20, someone Sam had seen around but didn't know by name. The kid was skinny, eager, paddling hard to get outside. They exchanged nods and spread out along the lineup, each finding their own space in the water. This is the unspoken etiquette of surfing. Give each other room, respect the rotation, don't crowd. The 3 of them sat in silence, watching the horizon, waiting for the next set. At 5:42 a.m., Sam sat on his board beyond the break. The horizon glowed soft orange now, the sun still hidden behind clouds, but its light beginning to spread across the sky. The swell remained clean. Shoulder-high sets rolled in consistently. He let 2 waves pass, watching them build and break, judging their shape and speed, waiting for the right one. The other surfers sat 30 meters to his left, spread out, quiet. The only sound was water lapping against boards and the distant crash of waves on the reef. At 5:50 a.m., a new set approached. Sam could see the dark lines on the horizon, 3 waves in the set, maybe 4. He repositioned slightly, paddling north to get a better angle. The first wave built as it moved over the reef. Too steep, the lip was already pitching as it approached. He let it go. Mike caught it, dropping in and carving down the face. The second wave looked better. Cleaner face, better shape. Sam turned his board toward the shore and started paddling, 3 hard strokes to build momentum. Then he stopped. Something felt wrong. At 5:51 a.m., something shifted beneath him. Not a wave, not current, not the usual movement of water that surfers become attuned to after years in the ocean. This was different. The water went still, completely still, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. Sam glanced down. The ocean was deep here, over 20 meters to the bottom. Visibility dropped off fast beyond the first few meters of sunlight penetrating the surface. He saw nothing, just dark blue-green water fading to black below, but the stillness remained. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, the surface didn't move. No ripples, no swell. Nothing. Then the shock struck. The great white rose vertically from below at high speed. No splash, no warning ripple, no dorsal fin cutting the surface. It struck Sam's left leg mid-calf with its lower jaw, upper jaw clamping down a moment later in a crushing bite. The impact was massive, like being hit by a car. It flipped him off the board instantly. He went under, dragged down by the weight and momentum of the shark. The water closed over his head. He couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't orient himself. Everything was chaos, bubbles, movement, pressure. Underwater, Sam was dragged down, not deep, maybe 3 or 4 meters, but violently. His vision blurred. Bubbles surrounded him, created by the thrashing and the displacement of water. He couldn't tell which way was up. The pain in his leg was instant and overwhelming, a white-hot sensation that seemed to consume everything else. Through the blur and the bubbles, he saw it. The shark's eye. Black, unblinking, less than a meter from his face. Perfectly round, emotionless. It wasn't looking at him with malice or anger. It was simply doing what it was designed to do. The shark's body was enormous up close, wider than Sam's chest, covered in rough gray skin that looked almost smooth but would tear flesh like sandpaper if touched. The gills, 5 vertical slits behind the head, flexed rhythmically even as the jaws maintained their grip. Sam could see the rows of teeth, triangular and serrated, some embedded in his leg, others visible along the gum line, ready to rotate forward if the front teeth broke. The creature's power was absolute. Sam wasn't fighting an animal. He was fighting a force of nature, a predator so perfectly designed for killing that it had remained essentially unchanged for millions of years. Sam punched. His fist connected with the snout once, twice. The cartilage gave slightly under his knuckles. The shark didn't release. He pushed against the head with both hands, trying to create distance, trying to force the jaws open. His lungs burned. He needed air, needed to breathe. The shark held him for what felt like minutes, but was probably only 8 or 10 seconds. Blood clouded the water around them, dark and thick, reducing visibility to almost nothing. Sam kept pushing, kept fighting, pure instinct taking over where conscious thought had shut down. His hands found the eye, pressing hard against the gelatinous surface. The shark shook its head violently, a predator's instinct to tear flesh from bone. Then, at 5:51:31 a.m., the shark released. The jaws opened. The pressure disappeared. Sam kicked toward the surface with his one good leg, the other trailing uselessly, leaving a stream of blood in the water. He broke through, gasping, pulling in air in huge, ragged breaths. He yelled, no words, just sound, a primal scream that carried across the water. His board floated 3 meters away, still attached to his right ankle by the leash. He reached for it, pulled himself halfway onto it, chest down, arms spread across the rails. Blood poured from his leg. The wetsuit was torn open. He could see bone, white against the red. Muscle hung in strips. The pain was indescribable. He yelled again, louder this time, panic setting in. At 5:51:45 a.m., the 2 other surfers heard him. Mike looked over and saw Sam on his board, saw the blood in the water, saw the thrashing movement. He immediately started paddling, arms pulling hard through the water. The younger surfer followed, both of them moving as fast as they could. They reached Sam within 20 seconds, maybe less. Time compressed in moments like this. Everything moves fast and slow simultaneously. "Shark! It got my leg." Sam's voice was weak, shaky, starting to slur. Mike grabbed Sam by the shoulders and hauled him across his own board, straddling him to keep him stable. The younger surfer pulled the leash off his own ankle and wrapped it tight around Sam's thigh, just above the knee, pulling it as tight as he could and tying it off. The tourniquet held. The bleeding slowed, but didn't stop. "Paddle! Now!" Mike's voice was calm but urgent. They started moving toward shore, Mike pulling with his arms while keeping Sam balanced, the younger surfer pushing from behind. Sam was semi-conscious now, head down, breathing shallow and rapid. The ocean around them was red for 5 meters in every direction. The blood spread in the current, creating a dark stain on the surface. The shark did not return. At 5:54 a.m., they reached the shallows. Mike jumped off his board into waist-deep water and dragged Sam through the surf onto the sand. The younger surfer ran toward the car park, still in his wetsuit, shouting for help. A jogger who had been running along the beach path above heard the shouting and had already pulled out her phone, dialing emergency services. She ran down to the beach, phone pressed to her ear, giving the operator their location and what she could see. 2 other beachgoers arrived within a minute, early morning walkers who had seen the commotion. They brought towels from their car. Mike pressed them against Sam's leg, but the bleeding didn't stop completely. The tourniquet was still tight, cutting into the skin. Mike held it in place with one hand while checking Sam's pulse at the wrist with the other. Weak but present. Sam was conscious but drifting. His skin had turned pale, almost gray. His lips were losing color. His breathing was rapid and shallow, classic signs of shock setting in. His body was shutting down non-essential systems to preserve blood flow to vital organs. "Stay with us, mate. Stay awake." Mike kept talking to him, keeping him engaged, keeping him conscious. Sam's eyes fluttered. He tried to respond but couldn't form words. The pain was everywhere now, not just his leg but his entire body, every nerve firing at once. At 6:03 a.m., sirens approached. A St. John ambulance pulled onto the beach access road, lights flashing, tires crunching on gravel. 2 paramedics jumped out, bags in hand, running down the sandy path to the beach. They assessed immediately. Severe trauma to left lower leg, massive blood loss, patient in shock. One paramedic knelt beside Sam and removed the board-leash tourniquet, replacing it with a proper medical tourniquet from his kit, positioning it higher on the thigh and cranking it tight with the windlass. The bleeding stopped almost completely. The other paramedic established an IV line in Sam's right arm, pushing fluids to combat the blood loss and shock. They worked quickly, efficiently, speaking in short, clipped sentences to each other. Sam was loaded onto a stretcher within 2 minutes, secured with straps, covered with a thermal blanket. At 6:06 a.m., the ambulance departed. Destination, the nearest trauma center, 42 kilometers away along winding coastal roads. En route, the paramedics radioed ahead. Male, mid-20s, shock attack, severe lower limb trauma, hemodynamically unstable. ETA, 15 minutes. They pushed fluids, monitored vitals, kept Sam conscious and breathing. Every bump in the road sent fresh waves of pain through his body. The paramedic in the back kept one hand on Sam's shoulder, keeping him grounded, keeping him present. At 6:21 a.m., Sam arrived at the hospital. The ambulance backed into the emergency bay. The doors opened, and Sam was wheeled directly into a trauma room where a surgical team was already waiting, alerted by the radio call. They transferred him from the stretcher to the surgical table, cut away his wetsuit, and began their assessment. The lead surgeon examined the leg for less than 2 minutes before making the decision. The damage was too extensive. The calf muscle was destroyed. Major blood vessels were severed. The tibia was fractured in multiple places. Infection risk was extremely high. The leg could not be saved. Amputation below the knee. It was the only option that gave Sam a realistic chance at survival and recovery. The surgical team moved Sam into the operating theater. Anesthesia was administered. The procedure began. They worked for 3 hours, carefully cutting through remaining muscle tissue, clamping and sealing blood vessels, smoothing the bone, creating a residual limb that could eventually support a prosthetic. The surgery was successful. No complications. Sam survived. That afternoon, while Sam was still in recovery, Department of Conservation officers arrived at the beach. They conducted a site assessment, walking the shoreline, scanning the water from the cliff tops with binoculars. No shark sightings, no further incidents. They posted temporary beach closure signs, 48 hours as a precaution. Marine biologists were contacted to review the incident, based on the bite pattern, examined through photographs of Sam's injuries and the behavior described by witnesses. They confirmed the predator was a great white shark, estimated length 3.5 to 4 meters, juvenile or subadult. The strike matched known ambush predation behavior. The shark had likely mistaken Sam Ware's silhouette on the surfboard for a seal, its primary prey. The release after the initial bite supported this hypothesis. Great whites often disengage once they realize the target is not their usual food source. They are opportunistic hunters, not mindless killers. No tagged sharks were recorded in the immediate area at the time of the attack. The investigation findings were straightforward. Water visibility that morning had been 5 to 8 meters. A seal colony was located 12 kilometers north along the coast. No unusual shark activity had been reported in the weeks leading up to the attack. The attack occurred during low-light conditions at dawn, when sharks hunt most actively and when visibility is poorest. No provocation was identified. Sam had done nothing wrong. He hadn't splashed excessively, hadn't entered the water near fishing activity or burly trails, hadn't been wearing shiny jewelry or brightly colored clothing. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. The official recommendation from the Department of Conservation was clear. Avoid dawn and dusk surf sessions in areas near seal colonies. Use shark deterrent technology where available, and surf in groups rather than alone. No punitive action was taken against the shark. No drum lines were deployed. No hunting parties were organized. The shark was doing what sharks do. The beach reopened on November 12th. Sam Morgan's medical report documented the extent of his injuries. Below-knee amputation of the left leg, 4 units of blood transfused during surgery. Post-operative recovery was stable. No infection developed. No complications arose. Modern surgical techniques and antibiotics had saved his life. A century ago, he would have died on the beach or shortly after. But medical science had advanced. He was discharged 11 days later on crutches, the residual limb bandaged and healing. Appointments scheduled for physical therapy and prosthetic fitting. 6 months later, Sam Morgan returned to the ocean. The process had been long and painful. First, he learned to walk again. The prosthetic leg felt alien at first, a foreign object strapped to his body. He had to relearn balance, relearn how to distribute his weight, relearn how to trust his body. Physical therapy sessions 3 times a week, gradually building strength and confidence. Then came the harder part, deciding whether to surf again. The ocean hadn't changed. The risks hadn't changed. The sharks were still there, still hunting, still following their ancient instincts. But something in Sam had changed. He couldn't explain it fully, not even to himself. The ocean had taken something from him, but it hadn't taken everything. The fear was there, real and present, especially in those first few paddles back into the water. But so was something else. The need to reclaim what had been his, to prove to himself that one encounter didn't define his entire relationship with the sea. He learned to surf again with the prosthetic. It required adjustments, modifications to his technique, new ways of balancing and turning on the board. But it was possible. He paddled out at the same break where the attack had occurred. Different board, lighter and more stable. Same water, same ocean. The first few sessions were tense, every shadow beneath the surface triggering a spike of adrenaline. But gradually, wave by wave, session by session, the fear lessened. It never disappeared completely. Anyone who tells you they surf in shark territory without fear is lying. But Sam learned to manage it, to accept it as part of the experience. The shark that attacked Sam Morgan was never seen again. It moved on, following the currents and the food supply, continuing its existence in the deep water channels along New Zealand's coast. Somewhere out there, it still swims, and Sam still surfs. The ocean remains, indifferent and eternal, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure.